They handed us a useless vessel. Humans made it unstoppable. Part 1. Greg Miller stood at the viewing window of Earth's orbital station, his eyes fixed on the approaching alien ship. It was not impressive. The dull metal hull showed many scars and patches from old repairs. Even from this distance, Greg could tell it was an outdated model. "They're really doing it," said Olivia Martinez, standing beside him. As chief engineer of the Interstellar Defense Force, she had spent weeks studying Valtharian ship designs. "They're actually giving us their garbage." Greg nodded but kept his face neutral. As commander of humanity's first space defense force, he couldn't show his disappointment. Not with so many eyes watching. The arrival of this ship was being broadcast to billions of people on Earth. For most humans, this was a historic moment, the first alien technology given to Earth since first contact 3 years ago. "Remember, smile for the cameras," Greg whispered. "This is still a diplomatic victory." The truth was more complicated. The Galactic Concord, the alliance of 7 alien species that ruled this part of the galaxy, had finally agreed to let humans join, but only as junior members. This ship was supposed to be a gesture of goodwill. In reality, it was a message. Know your place. The ship docked with a tired groan of metal. Ambassador Zextul of the Valtharians waited until the airlock opened. He stepped through with 4 guards. The ambassador was 7 feet tall with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His face showed no emotion as he approached Greg. "Commander Miller," the ambassador said in perfect English. "On behalf of the Valtharian Republic and the Galactic Concord, I present you with this scout vessel. We call it the Charitable Gesture. It has served our fleet for many cycles and will now help humans learn about space travel." Greg stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Ambassador, we are grateful for this generous gift. Earth accepts with humility and appreciation." Behind him, Olivia coughed softly, hiding her reaction. They both knew what the Valtharians really thought. Humans were too primitive to be real partners. This ship was like giving a toy car to a child. "You may inspect your new vessel," Ambassador Zextul said with a small wave of his lower right hand. Greg nodded to Olivia and 3 other crew members, Alan Wright, Kate Simpson, and Dwayne Johnson. Together they followed the ambassador through the airlock and into the alien ship. The inside was as disappointing as the outside. The corridors were narrow and dimly lit. Some wall panels were missing, showing bundles of strange cables and pipes. The air smelled stale. "This ship has basic, faster-than-light capabilities," the ambassador explained as they walked. "The weapons systems are currently offline. Life support is functional but minimal. This model served as a basic scout ship in our fleet." "When was it last in active service?" Olivia asked, running her hand along a worn control panel. The ambassador's upper eyes blinked slowly. "About 40 Earth years ago, but it is still quite advanced by human standards." They continued the tour through the engine room, command center, and living quarters. With each area, Greg's heart sank further. The Valtharians had stripped the ship of anything truly valuable. What remained was outdated technology, much of it broken or disabled. The propulsion system is at least 3 generations behind current Valtharian tech, Olivia whispered to Greg when the ambassador moved ahead. "And I bet they've locked the computer system so we can't learn how the advanced parts work." Alan Wright, the tactical officer, looked even more unhappy. "The weapon mounts are still here, but they've removed all the actual weapons. We're basically flying a space bus with no defenses." When they reached the bridge, Ambassador Zextul turned to face them. "Do you have questions about your new vessel?" Greg studied the alien's face. The insult was clear, but getting angry wouldn't help. The Valtharians and other conquered species believed humans were barely out of the Stone Age. Fighting that perception directly would only confirm it. "Just one question, Ambassador," Greg said. "Does this ship have a name in your records? Before it was called Charitable Gesture?" The ambassador seemed surprised by the question. "It was designated Scout Vessel 147. Nothing special. Why do you ask?" Greg smiled. "Every ship should have a real name. We'll give it one worthy of its new mission." After completing the formal transfer of ownership and saying diplomatic goodbyes, the ambassador and his guards returned to their sleek, modern ship and departed. Earth's media captured it all. The historic gift, the promises of cooperation, the beginning of humanity's journey to the stars. Only when the cameras turned off did Greg gather his core team in what would become their meeting room. The space was small, with mismatched chairs they had brought from the station. "Well, that was humiliating," Dwayne Johnson said. As communications specialist, he had been quietly scanning the ship's systems during the tour. They didn't even bother to clear the computer memory. There are messages in there joking about the primitive humans and their new toy. Kate Simpson, the team's xenobiologist, nodded. "They think we're going to put this in a museum or spend decades just figuring out how it works." Greg looked at each of them. These four were the best Earth had to offer. Brilliant, creative, and unwilling to accept limitations. He had chosen them specifically for this moment. "So the Valtharians think they've handed us a piece of junk," Greg said. "They expect us to fail, to prove we don't belong in space." He stood up straighter, his eyes bright with purpose. "Let's show them what humans can do with junk." Olivia's face broke into a slow smile. "You want to fix it? Make it work?" "No," Greg said. "I want to make it better. I want to transform it into something they never imagined possible." Alan leaned forward. "They left the weapon mounts. We could adapt our own systems to fit. The engine room has space for additional power systems," Olivia added, excitement growing in her voice. "If we combine their antimatter technology with our fusion systems, and I can work with the life support," Kate said. "I've been developing bioengineering solutions that could make it much more efficient." Dwayne tapped on his tablet. "Their communication systems are actually pretty good. If I can crack the encryption, we might access the Concord network directly." Greg nodded, feeling hope replace his earlier disappointment. "We have 6 months before we're expected to demonstrate this ship to the Concord representatives. 6 months to turn their insult into our advantage." He walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. "They think they've given us a useless vessel, but they've never seen what humans can do when challenged. We're going to make this ship unstoppable. They handed us a useless vessel. Humans made it unstoppable." Part 2. 6 months passed in a blur of activity. The orbital dock that housed the Valtharian ship became a hive of constant work. Engineers, scientists, and military specialists from Earth cycled through in shifts, bringing with them Earth's best technology and brightest ideas. Olivia Martinez rarely left the engine room. She had set up a small cot in the corner and often slept there rather than returning to the station quarters. Today, she stood in the center of what was now an unrecognizable space, where the Valtharians had installed their standard antimatter reactor. Now stood a hybrid system that merged human fusion technology with salvaged Valtharian components. "Try the power cycle again," she called to her assistant. The lights dimmed briefly, then came back brighter than before. Olivia checked her tablet and smiled. "Power output is now at 143% of the original specs." The intercom buzzed. "Olivia, it's Greg. How are we looking down there?" "Better than expected," she replied. "The hybrid drive is stable. We've actually exceeded the original Valtharian power ratings." "Good," Greg said. "Meet me on the bridge in 20 minutes. I want updates from everyone." Olivia made her way through the ship's corridors. The once dim hallways now glowed with proper lighting. The missing wall panels had been replaced, some with Valtharian spares they had found in storage, others with human-made components that somehow worked better than the originals. On the bridge, Greg sat in the captain's chair, now modified to fit human proportions. Alan Wright stood at the weapons console while Kate Simpson reviewed data at the science station. Dwayne Johnson was the last to arrive, carrying several tablets. "Let's hear where we stand," Greg said once they were all present. "Olivia, the Sci engine modifications are complete," she reported. "By combining our fusion technology with their antimatter containment, we've created something entirely new. The Valtharians designed their systems to be incompatible with ours, but that forced us to innovate. We now have more power, more efficiency, and better control than either system alone would provide." "And the speed?" Greg asked. "We've doubled the FTL capability," Olivia said with pride. This ship can now outrun any standard Valtharian vessel of similar size. Greg nodded, clearly pleased. Alan, what about weapons? Alan brought up a holographic display of the ship's exterior. The Valtharians left the weapon mounts but took the weapons. Big mistake. He highlighted several points on the ship's hull. We've installed modified railguns based on our own designs. They're smaller than what the Valtharians would use, but faster and with better targeting. By studying their targeting computers, we've increased accuracy by 300%. Will they work against Conquered shields? Better than they should, Alan said with a grin. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons. Our kinetic projectiles will be more effective than they expect. Greg turned to Kate. Life support? Kate's eyes lit up. This is where we really shine. I've introduced a bioengineered algae system that processes carbon dioxide and produces oxygen at 4 times the rate of the original system. It requires a fraction of the energy and is self-repairing, and it's completely unlike anything the Concorde uses. Greg noted. Exactly. They rely on mechanical systems. This is biological and mechanical working together. Finally, Greg looked to Dwayne. Communications? Dwayne stepped forward. I've cracked their encryption, he said quietly, as if still not believing it himself. We now have access to all standard Concorde communications channels. Most importantly, I've modified our signals to appear exactly like a normal Valtharian scout ship's emissions. Unless they physically see us, other ships won't know humans are aboard. Greg stood and walked around the bridge, touching each station as he passed. So we have a ship that's faster, more efficient, better armed, and can listen in on Conquered communications, all from the useless vessel they handed us. He stopped at the main viewport and gazed out at the stars. What shall we name her? Phoenix, Olivia suggested immediately. In Earth mythology, the phoenix rises from its own ashes to become something new and powerful. Greg smiled. Perfect. The phoenix it is. 2 weeks later, Ambassador Zextal returned to Earth's orbital station. He was scheduled to inspect the humans' progress with the gifted vessel and report back to the Concorde. Greg met him at the airlock, dressed in a new uniform designed for the Phoenix's crew. Commander Miller, the ambassador said with the same condescending tone as before. I trust you have been making use of our generous gift? We have indeed, Ambassador, Greg replied politely. Would you care to see what we've done with it? The ambassador's forearms made a gesture of mild interest. I suppose that would be appropriate, though I do not expect much progress. It takes most new species decades to understand Conquered technology. Greg led him through the airlock and into the Phoenix. The ambassador stopped immediately, his upper eyes widening in surprise. The corridor was clean, well lit, and humming with energy. You've made some cosmetic improvements, he said, clearly trying to sound unimpressed. Just the beginning, Greg replied. Please follow me. As they toured the ship, the ambassador's surprise turned to disbelief. In the engine room, Olivia explained the hybrid drive system, careful to use simple terms that wouldn't reveal too much. This is not standard, the ambassador said, studying the reactor with all 4 eyes. We worked with what we had, Olivia said innocently. In the weapons bay, Alan demonstrated the targeting systems using a simulation. The railguns hit every target with perfect accuracy. These are not Valtharian weapons, the ambassador noted with growing concern. No, Alan agreed. You didn't leave us any. By the time they reached the bridge, Ambassador Zextal had fallen, silent. He watched as the crew took their stations and ran through pre-flight checks. You've done all this in 6 months? He finally asked. Humans are quick learners, Greg said. We're scheduled for our first patrol of the Sol system tomorrow. The Phoenix is ready. Phoenix? You renamed it? Every ship needs a proper name. The ambassador's skin had paled slightly. I must report these modifications to the Concorde Council. Of course, Greg said. That's why you're here. Please tell them we're grateful for the opportunity they've given us. After the ambassador departed, the crew gathered on the bridge. He did not look happy, Kate observed. No, Greg agreed. He expected us to fail or to simply display their gift as a token. He never imagined we would transform it. What happens? Now? Dwayne asked. Greg sat in the captain's chair and looked around at his crew, the best of humanity, who had accomplished the impossible in 6 months. Now, he said, we show the conquered what humans can really do. Ready for our first mission? Olivia smiled. The Phoenix is ready to rise. They handed us a useless vessel. Humans made it unstoppable. Part 3. The Phoenix's first mission was supposed to be a simple patrol of the Sol system. Greg had planned a careful route that would test the ship's systems while staying well within safe boundaries. Earth wanted to show the conquered they could handle their new vessel responsibly. On the third day of the patrol, everything changed. Dwayne Johnson sat at his communication station, monitoring conquered channels as the Phoenix cruised past the orbit of Neptune. His posture suddenly stiffened. Commander, I'm picking up a distress call, he announced. A galleon-class merchant vessel is under attack. 3 Shikthar ships have surrounded it. Greg moved to Dwayne's station. Shikthar? Those are the pirates. Kate briefed us about, right? Kate nodded from her science station. They're vicious raiders. Even the Valtharians lose ships to them regularly. How far away is the merchant ship? Greg asked. About 2 light hours from our position, Dwayne replied. It's outside our patrol zone. Are any Concord defense ships responding? Dwayne shook his head. The closest Valtharian patrol is 5 hours away. By then, the Shikthar will be gone with whatever they're stealing. Greg returned to his captain's chair and thought for a moment. Their orders were clear. Stay within the Sol system, don't engage with other species without authorization. But a ship was in trouble and the Phoenix could help. Olivia, he called, over the intercom. How confident are you in our FTL drive? Very confident, came the immediate reply. You thinking of taking a little detour? Set course to intercept that merchant vessel, Greg ordered. Maximum speed. Alan looked up from the tactical station. Sir, this goes beyond our authorized patrol route. I'm aware, Greg said, but we can't ignore a distress call. That's not who we are, not who humans are. The crew exchanged looks, then moved with purpose. Within minutes, the Phoenix had changed course and accelerated to its top speed. FTL engaged. Olivia reported from engineering. Our modified drive is performing perfectly. The journey took just under an hour, half the time a standard Valtharian scout would have needed. When they dropped out of FTL, the scene before them was exactly as Dwayne had described. 3 angular, predatory-looking Shikthar vessels surrounded a bulky merchant ship. Boarding tubes extended from the pirate ships locked onto the merchant vessel's hull. They're already boarding, Kate said. The crew doesn't stand a chance. The Shikthar haven't noticed us, Alan reported, checking his tactical display. Our signature is different enough from standard Valtharian ships that they don't recognize us as a threat. Greg smiled. Let's introduce ourselves. Target those boarding tubes, minimum power. We want to cut them without damaging the merchant ship. Alan's fingers moved over his console. Targeting complete. Railguns charged and ready. Fire. The Phoenix's railguns fired in precise sequence. The kinetic projectiles, simple metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds, sliced through the boarding tubes with surgical precision. The tubes collapsed, disconnecting the pirate ships from their prey. Direct hits on all 3 boarding tubes, Alan announced. No damage to the merchant vessel. On the main screen, they could see the Shikthar ships reorienting, confused by the sudden attack. They've spotted us, Dwayne said. They're trying to identify us on conquered channels. Let them wonder, Greg replied. Kate, what's the status of the merchant crew? Kate studied her readings. Life signs appear stable. The ship is damaged, but not critically. The largest Shikthar vessel turned its weapons toward the Phoenix. They're firing, Alan called out. Evasive pattern Delta, Greg ordered. The Phoenix moved with an agility no Valtharian vessel its size could match. The combined human-Valtharian drive system allowed for maneuvers that confounded the pirates' targeting systems. Energy blasts, From the Sikthar weapons passed harmlessly through empty space where the Phoenix had been moments before. "Return fire," Greg commanded. "Target their weapon systems only." The Phoenix's railguns fired again, this time at full power. The kinetic projectiles punched through the Sikthar shields, designed to stop energy weapons, not physical objects moving at extreme speeds. "Direct hits," Allen reported. "Two of their ships have lost weapons capability." The third Sikthar vessel, seeing its companions disabled, turned and accelerated away from the battle. "The last ship is retreating," Dwayne said. "They're sending out some kind of wideband signal, probably calling for help." "Let's not stick around to meet their friends," Greg said. "Hail the merchant vessel." Dwayne opened a channel. "They're responding. Visual communication requested." "On screen," Greg ordered. The main display showed the merchant ship's bridge. A Valtharian captain stared back at them, his four eyes blinking rapidly in what seemed to be shock. "This is Captain Kextool of the merchant vessel Star Trader," the Valtharian said. "We are in your debt for your timely—" He stopped suddenly, mandibles clicking in surprise. You're humans?" "We are," Greg confirmed. "I'm Commander Greg Miller of the Phoenix. We received your distress call and came to help." "But that ship," Captain Kextol said, "it moves like no scout vessel I've ever seen. And your weapons?" "We've made some improvements," Greg said simply. The EOR merchant captain's upper eyes narrowed. "You're flying the vessel my cousin Zextol gave your people. He told the Concord it was barely operational." Greg smiled. "It just needed some human ingenuity." "We have injured crew members," Captain Kextol said after a moment. "Our medical facilities were damaged in the attack. Kate, take a medical team and transport over to the merchant vessel," Greg ordered. "Provide whatever assistance they need." For the next few hours, the Phoenix stayed with the damaged merchant ship. Kate and her team treated the injured Valtharians while Olivia helped their engineers restore main power. Even Allen went across to help strengthen their defenses against any future attacks. When a Valtharian patrol finally arrived, Captain Kexatul was already preparing to continue his journey. "The patrol commander will want to speak with you," he told Greg. "What you did today violated several Concord protocols about staying within authorized zones." "We responded to a distress call," Greg said. "Is that not a universal duty?" "It is," the merchant captain agreed. "And for what it's worth, I will report that you saved my ship and my crew when no one else could." His mandibles clicked in what might have been a Valtharian smile. Perhaps my cousin was wrong about humans. As the Phoenix prepared to return to the Sol system, Greg gathered his crew on the bridge. "We just made first contact in a combat situation," he said. "Not exactly what Earth had planned." "Do you think we'll get in trouble?" Kate asked. "Almost certainly," Greg replied. "But we also just showed the Concord what humans and the Phoenix can do. And we saved lives. That counts for something." Dwayne looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm picking up Concord communications about us. Word of what happened here is spreading fast." "What are they saying?" Greg asked. "They're calling us the humans who made a useless vessel unstoppable," Dwayne said with a grin. Greg nodded. "Good. Mission accomplished. Set course for home. I think we've given the Concord enough to think about for one day. They handed us a useless vessel. Humans made it unstoppable." Part 4 news of the Phoenix's victory over the Sikthar pirates spread quickly through Galactic Concord channels. Within days of their return to Earth, Greg and his crew found themselves at the center of an interstellar controversy. "The Valtharian High Command is not happy," said General Laura Harris, head of Earth's Space Defense Program. She paced the conference room where Greg and his team sat. "Ambassador Zextul has filed a formal complaint. He claims we violated our agreement by modifying the ship beyond recognition and leaving our assigned patrol area." "We responded to a distress call," Greg said, "and the modifications were necessary to make the ship functional." The general stopped pacing and smiled slightly. "I know. And between us, Earth is quite proud of what you've accomplished. You've shown the Concord that humans aren't to be underestimated." "So what happens now?" Olivia asked. Now, the general said, we deal with the political fallout. The Concord has called a special summit to discuss the Shikthar threat. All member species are sending representatives. All except Earth, Greg guessed. Correct. We were pointedly not invited. The general's smile grew. Which is why you're going anyway. 1 week later, the Phoenix approached the massive Concord station orbiting Proxima Centauri b, the closest star system to Earth. The station was a marvel of alien engineering, a giant wheel spinning slowly in space, creating artificial gravity for its inhabitants. We can't just crash a diplomatic summit, Kate protested as they neared the station. They'll see it as further proof that humans don't respect Concord rules. We're not crashing it, Greg replied from the captain's chair. We're responding to the agenda item regarding Shikthar piracy. After all, we're now experts on defeating them. Dwayne looked up from his communications console. I've sent our request to Doc, using standard Valtharian protocols. Any response? Greg asked. They're confused. The station control doesn't recognize our ship signature, but our codes are valid. Greg nodded. Olivia, how's our docking system? Ready to go, she replied over the intercom. I've modified it to be compatible with all standard Concord docking ports. They won't be able to deny us on technical grounds. After several minutes of confusion, the station granted them permission to dock. When the Phoenix connected to the station, security forces, a mix of Valtharians and other alien species, were waiting at the airlock. Commander Miller, the lead security officer said, your presence here is unexpected and unauthorized. We received information about the summit's agenda, Greg said calmly. The Shikthar threat is being discussed. As the only Concord vessel to successfully defeat Shikthar ships in recent months, we believe our input would be valuable. The security officers exchanged looks. None of them had orders covering this situation. Wait here, the lead officer finally said. I will consult with the council. While they waited, Greg turned to his crew. Remember, we're here to help, not to boast. The Concord needs to see humans as partners, not threats. Eventually, they were escorted through the station toward the Grand Council chamber. The station was filled with members of all 7 Concord species. Many stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. They've never seen humans in person before, Kate whispered. Most of these species have only heard stories about us. The Grand Chamber was a circular room with raised seating for hundreds of representatives. In the center was a speaking platform where Ambassador Zextool was addressing the gathering. These pirates grow bolder by the day, the ambassador was saying. 3 Valtharian merchant vessels lost in the past month alone. Our patrols are... He stopped mid-sentence as Greg and his crew entered the chamber. A murmur spread through the assembled representatives. These humans have no authority to attend this summit, Zextool said coldly. An elderly alien with long, flowing robes stood from his seat. His skin was deep purple and he had 6 eyes arranged in a circle around his head. These humans, the elder said in a deep, resonant voice, have demonstrated more effectiveness against the Shikthar in one encounter than Valtharian patrols have in a full cycle. I believe we should hear what they have to say. He gestured to Greg. I am Elder Yithmal of the Proxians. Please, Commander, approach the speaking platform. Ambassador Zextool stepped aside, his forearms rigid with displeasure. Greg moved to the center of the chamber, feeling the eyes of hundreds of aliens upon him. Members of the Concord, Greg began. I am Commander Greg Miller of Earth. My ship, the Phoenix, responded to a distress call from a Valtharian merchant vessel under attack by Shikthar pirates. We were able to defeat 3 pirate ships and save the merchant crew. Using a ship modified far beyond its original specifications, Zextool interrupted. Modifications that violate our technology sharing agreements. The ship you gave us, Greg replied calmly, was stripped of all essential systems. It could barely leave orbit. We didn't modify your technology, we replaced it with our own. He activated a small device Olivia had prepared. A holographic display appeared showing the Phoenix's systems. The Valtharians gave us an empty shell and expected us to fail, Greg continued. Instead, we created something new. We don't want to replace your technologies. We want to enhance them. Together we could be so much more effective. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species were clearly intrigued by human adaptability. Others, led by the Valtharians, were suspicious. Your improvised solutions are dangerous and untested, a Valtharian representative argued. Conquered technology is standardized for a reason. And, yet the Shikthar continue to defeat that standardized technology, Greg countered. Sometimes a new approach is needed. Elder Ythmal raised his six-fingered hands for silence. The human brings up a valid point. Perhaps we have become too rigid in our thinking. The debate continued for hours. Greg and his crew answered countless questions about their modifications to the Phoenix. Olivia explained the hybrid drive system. Alan demonstrated the effectiveness of their weapons. Kate showed how their bioengineered life support could be adapted to other ships. Slowly, Greg could see attitudes shifting. Not all the representatives were convinced, but many were beginning to see the potential benefits of human innovation. As the session was about to conclude, the chamber doors burst open. A Valtharian officer rushed in, his blue skin pale with urgency. "Honored representatives," the officer announced. "Our long-range sensors have detected a Shikthar fleet approaching the station. 12 vessels, heavily armed. They will arrive in 6 hours." The chamber descended into chaos. 12 Shikthar ships represented the largest coordinated pirate action in decades. They must have learned about the summit, Alan whispered to Greg. All the Concord leadership in one place. Ambassador Zextol called for order. The Valtharian defense fleet will move to intercept. All non-essential personnel should prepare for evacuation. Greg stepped forward. The Phoenix will join the defense. The ambassador stared at him in disbelief. One small vessel cannot change the outcome of this battle. Greg met his gaze steadily. "Watch us." They handed us a useless vessel. Humans made it unstoppable. Part 5. The Concord Station's defense center buzzed with frantic activity. Displays showed the approaching Shikthar fleet, 12 vessels moving in tight formation. Representatives from all 7 conquered species crowded around tactical screens, their usual political differences forgotten in the face of danger. Greg and his crew stood slightly apart, watching the organized chaos. Ambassador Zexatul was directing the Valtharian defense fleet, his forearms gesturing at different display screens as he issued commands. "The Valtharian formation is textbook perfect," Alan observed quietly. "But that's the problem. The Shikthar have been studying Valtharian tactics for generations." Greg nodded. They know exactly what to expect. On the main screen, the Valtharian ships moved to intercept the pirates. Their formation was beautiful, a precise arrangement designed to maximize shield coverage and weapon effectiveness. The Shikthar responded by shifting their own formation, exploiting tiny gaps in the Valtharian defense. "They're counter-maneuvering perfectly," Kate said. "It's like they can predict every move." "Because they can," Greg replied. "The Valtharians have been using the same defense patterns for centuries. They value tradition over adaptation." The battle began. Energy weapons flashed between the two fleets. The Valtharians fought with discipline and courage, but the Shikthar had clearly planned for this encounter. Their attacks targeted weak points in the Valtharian formation with uncanny precision. "They're breaking through the defense perimeter," Dwayne reported, monitoring the battle from a secondary screen. "2 Valtharian ships disabled already." Greg watched for another minute, then made his decision. "Prepare the Phoenix for immediate departure. We're joining the fight." Ambassador Zextul turned from his command position. "One small vessel cannot change the outcome, Commander Miller. This is no longer about your human pride. The safety of the entire Conquered leadership is at stake." "This isn't about pride," Greg said firmly. "It's about trying something the Shikthar won't expect." He looked at his crew. "Let's go." As they hurried through the station towards their docking bay, Elder Ythmal of the Proxians intercepted them. "Commander," the elder said, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence, "I have observed your people's approach to problems. It is unorthodox but effective." He pressed a small device into Greg's hand. This contains tactical data on Sikthar ships, weak points in their design that the Conquered has identified but never successfully exploited. Thank you, Greg said, surprised by the gesture. Perhaps it is time for a new approach, the Elder said simply, then stepped aside to let them pass. Minutes later, the Phoenix launched from the station. Instead of joining the Valtharian formation, Greg ordered a course that took them wide around the main battle. What's the plan? Olivia asked, from engineering. The Sikthar are focused on the Valtharian defense fleet, Greg explained. They won't expect an attack from a different vector. Alan, use Elder Yithmal's data to identify priority targets. Alan studied the information. Their command ship is here, he said, highlighting a vessel near the center of the Sikthar formation. It's coordinating their entire attack pattern. Then that's our primary target, Greg decided. Olivia, I need maximum power to engines and weapons, even if it means pushing our systems beyond safety limits. They can handle it, she replied confidently. This ship was built to exceed expectations. The Phoenix accelerated, moving through the debris field created by the battle. Its small size and unusual energy signature allowed it to approach the Sikthar fleet undetected. Open a channel to all Conquered vessels, Greg ordered when they were in position. Channel open, Dwayne confirmed. This is Commander Miller of the Phoenix, Greg broadcast. We're about to engage the Sikthar command ship. We're transmitting tactical data now. Anyone who wants to try something new, follow our lead. He nodded. To Dwayne, who sent the analysis of Sikthar weaknesses to the Conquered fleet. Some ships are acknowledging, Dwayne reported. 3 Valtharian vessels have broken formation. They're moving to support us. The rest are staying in formation, Alan added. Ambassador Zextul is ordering them to maintain standard attack pattern. 3 ships is better than none, Greg said. Let's make this count. The Phoenix burst from the debris field, its railguns firing at the Sikthar command ship. The kinetic projectiles struck with devastating force, punching through shields designed to stop energy weapons. The Sikthar, caught by surprise, turned to face this new threat. Their formation, previously so effective against the Valtharians, began to break apart as some ships moved to intercept the Phoenix, while others maintained their original attack. They're splitting their focus, Kate observed. The Valtharian fleet has an opening. The 3 Valtharian ships that had broken formation followed the Phoenix's example, targeting the weak points identified in the tactical data. More Conquered vessels, seeing the effectiveness of this approach, began to break from their rigid formations and adapt. The Phoenix dove and weaved through the Sikthar fleet, its hybrid drive allowing maneuvers that no standard Conquered vessel could match. When Sikthar weapons locked on, the Phoenix was already elsewhere. Direct hit on their command ship's main power system, Alan reported as another railgun volley struck home. They're losing coordination. Without central command, the Sikthar attack began to falter. Individual pirate ships fought fiercely but could no longer maintain their coordinated assault. The Concord fleet, now fighting with more flexibility, pressed their advantage. 2 Sikthar ships destroyed, Dwayne called out. 3 more disabled. The rest are beginning to retreat. A massive energy blast rocked the Phoenix. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Hull breach on deck 3, Kate reported. Emergency. Systems responding. Weapons still operational, Alan said, targeting the last active Sikthar vessel. The Phoenix fired once more. Its railguns, pushed beyond their designed limits, struck the final Sikthar ship with enough force to disable its engines. All enemy ships either destroyed, disabled, or in retreat, Dwayne announced. We did it. The battle was over. 3 Conquered vessels had been lost, with several more damaged, but the Sikthar fleet, the largest pirate attack in decades, had been defeated. As the Phoenix limped back to the station, communications channels flooded with messages from Conquered ships, messages of thanks, congratulations, and respect. In the days that followed, the Phoenix crew became celebrities among the Conquered species. The ship, once a symbol of condescension, had become the emblem of a new era in interstellar cooperation. In the Grand Chamber, with the Phoenix crew standing at the center, Elder Ithmal addressed the assembled representatives. Today we have witnessed not just courage but innovation, the elder proclaimed. The Valtharians gave humans a useless vessel expecting them to fail. Instead, humans have shown us a new path forward. Even Ambassador Zexitol could not deny the evidence before him. Perhaps, the ambassador conceded reluctantly, there is something to be said for the human approach to problem solving. Greg stood, tall, representing not just his crew but all of humanity. We don't want special treatment, he said. We don't want to lead. We want to contribute. The Shikthar were defeated not because of human technology or conquered technology, but because we finally worked together. Different perspectives, different approaches, unified purpose. He looked around at the representatives of 7 alien species, seeing respect in their eyes where once there had been only condescension. You handed us a useless vessel, Greg concluded. We made it unstoppable. Imagine what we could accomplish as true partners. As the Concord erupted in approving sounds, everything from Valtharian mandible clicking to the melodious humming of the Proxians, Greg turned to his crew. These 4 humans had changed the course of interstellar relations through their determination, creativity, and courage. Not bad for a piece of junk, Olivia said with a smile. Greg laughed. Not bad at all. I think this is just the beginning. And as he looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's vast viewport, Greg knew he was right. Humanity's journey among the stars had truly begun.